Hey, it's Bradley Rosa with the Broward County Bar Association, Broward Buzz, and I'm here with my friend, attorney Juan Arias, the guru of ethics throughout the entire state of Florida. Juan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Braulio.
Well, look, we've been friends, over a decade, and I've seen you grow into this powerhouse across the state, so I had to invite you so we can talk about issues that attorneys and other folks that are licensed are encountering. So tell us a little bit about your practice.
Well, I purely do administrative law these days, and that includes mostly licensed people across the state of Florida. People know me for bar defense, the ethics, complaints and teaching across the state. But I also do Florida Board of Bar Examiner cases, the applicants to the bar that have character and fitness issues. That's a big thing for me. I do a lot of hearings throughout the year. I also do nurses because they have licenses, as you know, they have a board. So I appear before the board and I defend them also. Real estate agents, really anything that is licensing in Florida, I do because they get the due process on their Statute 120 when you ask for a judge to be assigned and all that. So it all works the same way.
Okay, so let's parse that. Let's first talk about attorneys. What are you finding give me like the top 3 issues that attorneys are finding themselves in trouble with? What should they be cognizant of?
Yeah, most of the time when you look at the records from the Florida bar, the top complaints are always issues of communication, diligence, competence. Those are always on the top because it's just the nature of the practice. We're not all perfect, and things do happen in those areas that create issues. So that's normally the top. The more serious cases, every year I get several cases on trust accounting. That's very common. It's not the top, but it is one of the big serious because, as you know, the presumption when you have monies that are missing is disbarment. So it's just serious in nature. But the bread and butter normally deals a combination of diligence, communication, and competence, I would say.
And so you're finding that attorneys just blow off their clients, they just don't respond in email or in any form to them?
Yeah, managing clients is truly an art. Some people have processes in place for communication, but not all communication is the same. And just checking boxes sometimes is not enough for clients. Clients are very sophisticated these days, people in general. When we are bombarded with access and knowledge that comes through social media. People have windows to the world in their phones, so you can ask and find out and know your rights and interpret your rights, in your hand. That's just a phenomenon. So they're very educated in that respect, and that creates really challenges to managing people because I'm sure most of the people listening that are attorneys know of clients that may think that they know more than you, and they act like that, and they treat you like that, and of course they're coming to you for a reason. So it's just a different type of client out there these days, and you have to be sophisticated in how you communicate because sometimes just the traditional methods are just not enough, and you need to identify those clients. And it doesn't take long to understand if you have a client that needs a lot of hand-holding, and you need to identify those because they may become an issue. And always document your communications, and pay close attention to what is being said, and always cover your back. If a lot of people now use texts for communication and even in phone, you should always, especially when you are discussing something of great importance to a case, a decision as to discovery. Are we going to do this? Or which persons to depose? You want to make sure that you document what the client, discussed with you, so you know that, okay, yeah, let's not take that depot, or let's not do this, or I'm not accepting that settlement. Always document it, because clients do turn on you, especially when the outcome is not what they expected. And it's up to you to cover your own, behind. You gotta be proactive.
Are there any red flags that attorneys should be aware of when they're dealing with their clients? Things that really kind of constantly pop up that you see their clients that are suddenly saying that they're not doing their job? Are there those things that just really pop up and manifest themselves?
Yeah, usually in most law firms, that red flag comes up when the client calls or begins communications, whichever method, calls or emails, on a constant basis. That is the first flag that I need to pay attention. I need to have somebody. So the client will let you know. And when you see that is not common to every client, then you know that you may have a red flag client.
Is it okay for an attorney to use their paralegal? Does that count as a communication touch point, or should it always be that attorney?
Again, it depends. It depends. There are clients out there that would not take those paralegals, and sometimes associate attorneys, depending on the law firms, seriously. And that is something you got to put in the mix when you're deciding the proper way of managing that client. So it depends. But certainly, many of the communications will normally come on the daily basis of procedure and notices, and this will obviously come from a paralegal. But when you get the barrage of emails and calls, you know that's a special client. I call them special clients. Yeah,
I get it. And with the Google machine out there now, people can find out anything, or at least enough to make them dangerous, right, at times.
No, not dangerous. Is that, it comes with our territory. I mean, but nobody comes to see us to say hi or buy a car from us. They come with their problem.
You're a problem solver as an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody comes with a problem, and that's the nature of our industry, and it's stressful, and there is a legitimate level of stress, and that comes with many of our cases, if not all, and you have to factor that in, because it's people get anxious. Not everybody's the same, and what triggers me may not trigger you, and you need to know your client. I mean, at the end of the day. And some practices make it almost impossible. And some others, like mine, I get to know my clients, because I have kind of a boutique type of thing going on. But I can see big firms where you can't have that. And at the end of the day, you got to satisfy the need of that client, whichever that need is, as you determine and detect through interaction. So because you want to prevent, first of all, you want a happy client. And you want a client that feels that you gave the proper time, that you explained things, the proper way, that you kept them informed, that they know that you're at a hearing, that they hear after the hearing what happened. You get complaints like that all the time. Like, when you lost that summary judgment, did you call the client? No, I wrote it. I mean, you gotta be
the personal
sensitive
touch
to the human being that you are representing. And that is lost in the practice of law. It's lost. That humanity, because we are running a business at the end of the day. And there's so many hours in the day. So achieving that balance is hard. And the bigger the practice, obviously the harder it is. But you got to work at it.
So the art form of being a counselor, part of your job, you say that's wanting maybe a little bit.
Yes. I mean, many industries, many areas of the law of our industry are truly volume oriented, and that's always a challenge. And most complaints in general come through against law firms that do volume. It is natural. Of course, it happens in small firms too, but it will be natural because of the systems in place and the delegation of a lot of the of the communications, to other people. So yeah, the bigger the law firm, obviously the more challenging it is to have that connection with the client. But you still have to strive to accomplish that, because you do want to have a client that is going to recommend you at the end of the day. I mean, every client is a source of referrals. So you should always try to achieve 100% satisfaction, obviously, in theory, because at the end of the day, it's a business.
So you were talking about volume. Do you find that, what type of practices do you find more often than not that kind of get themselves in a jam? You're talking about volume, so maybe these PI firms that are volume, ticket clinics, these kind of things.
Not that much on ticket clinics, but yeah, insurance,
PI, personal injury,
personal injury. That's probably the biggest. The other types of laws, they generate issues that normally have to deal more with competence, not that much communication, but more of competence. Because bankruptcy and all of that, immigration. Sure. Creates a lot of issues for the small practitioner, the solo.
Really? Immigration?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Very common to see complaints. One reason is that there's a case called Lozada in the immigration world, and all of you doing immigration know what I'm talking about. And in order for you to argue that you want a rehearing, you want to fix something that went wrong in your case, requires that you file a complaint against your attorney. Yeah, for ineffective assistance. That's there. So that's what Lozada stands for.
Sometimes there may be, let's say, frivolous filings against attorneys, so they can be reheard?
They have to check that box.
Okay.
And then that generates, so every year I do get involved in a lot of Lozada motivated type of bar complaints. So that's just an example of a sole practitioner that may disproportionately get some complaints, because in order to get a rehearing, they just throw the dice and blame you,
Wow.
And, yeah.
What about the family law bar? Do you see a lot of complaints with?
Yes, actually I do. The family law world is very litigious, and I've noticed, I don't practice family law, but I noticed from the many cases I've been involved in that family law attorneys do not communicate very well with themselves, and they don't seem to agree to many things. So everything requires motions or pleadings, or so it's very litigious. And yes, it is common to see parties, the actual husband and wife, pointing fingers at attorneys, and attorneys pointing fingers at each other. It does generate some bar litigation.
I can imagine, because
Yeah.
it can be corrosive.
Yes.
So kind of segueing into other areas where people have to get licensed or approved. We were talking a little bit about law students, and they have to have their background checked.
Yeah.
So you deal with that when there's issues there, right?
I normally have 3-4 cases monthly before the board of bar examiners. So I do a little bit over 30 cases before in hearings, both investigative hearings and final hearings. And of course, I help with the filing of the application. Some people understand that they're going to have issues, so they hire me to help them properly identify and explain those issues. And many times, they don't even get to an investigative hearing because we dealt with them efficiently in the application process, provided the proper documents to support the explanations. I had a DUI, or I had this or that, whatever it is. And sometimes they get cleared without hearings. So I get hired at the beginning of the application process. I get hired when they get a notice of investigative hearing, because they're like, "Oh, we don't like this stuff in your application." And sometimes I get hired for the formal hearing. And normally that's people that represented themselves in the investigative hearing, and they were not cleared. And now you go to the full board. It's 5 members of the board. It's like a trial.
Wow.
With pleadings, it's complaint, answer, very serious process. and costly. So that's part of what I do on a monthly basis.
Significant
Significant caseload. Yeah. And then nursing. I was at the board of nursing 2 weeks ago in Tampa. And by the way, the boards of the Florida Board of Bar Examiners and the nursing board, they move around the state. So you got to go where they are holding the hearing. So there's a lot of traveling involved. I'm like a groupie of the boards. When they say we're gonna be in Jacksonville, which is next month, I'll be there. Then they go to Orlando, I'll be there.
Do
then
they travel together, those two boards?
No, separate boards. Yeah, so they meet at different places. They're separate. But nursing, the big issue now in nursing is that there are several schools that were shut down for fraud. They were issuing licenses or graduation documents to people that really had not complied with the requirements of the state of Florida.
Wow.
So hundreds, if not thousands, of nurses and applicants, for a nursing license.
Wait, unbeknownst to them.
Of course. And some may have known that there were issues with the timelines on their accreditations, that they didn't really start that month, but so there are very many varieties of what the problem is, but the bottom line is that the owners of these nursing enterprises that were certified by the state, that they were teaching, for nursing accreditation, they gave names of people, of students that they believe didn't meet the requirements because they were not really following the requirements, the owners. And from those lists, the Department of Health has been just very aggressive. So that has caused a lot of frustration, because there are practicing nurses throughout the U.S. Because they
deal with this issue.
Yeah, that they're getting, hey, we're taking away your license, and then applicants who were applying that now have their records, affected by these transcripts that are not accurate. So it's a mess. It's very unfortunate because they were accredited schools, and these people pay big money for their schooling, and now they're out of money and out of a license.
So what happens? Do they suspend these nurses temporarily? They can't work when they're going through this process?
Yeah, they're moving pretty aggressively, especially for the ones that are practicing. They're saying, hey, we have this affidavit from the owners. If you do not accept the revocation, we're going to tag fraud on you, because now or you should have known that your registration said that you started in May, but you actually didn't start. So they're really aggressively, going after them for potentially for fraud. And if they do not accept the revocation, it will be almost impossible for you to come back, because that tag of you were part of the fraud, now you're aware of the fraud, right, and you're still pursuing it. It's messy. It's very emotional. I was there 2 weeks ago in Tampa, and the room was full of people in the same situation. Probably close to 200 people. They're just processing them because they are entitled to. The board has to call them.
Due process.
And they're packing it, and they actually, the counsel for the board, the attorney speaks to them and says, "This is what's going on. If you come to this table and you try to advance your case, knowing well now that it's fraud, this is going. It was pretty so dramatic how they are approaching this. I do understand.
How do you cure this, though?
Yeah, you can't, because you simply have paid all this money, and you cannot prove that you had all the requirements. You can't. The schools are closed now, so you can't even go and get your records. They're closed. They were prosecuted by the FBI. Some people are serving time already, the owners.
So they would literally have to go back to nursing school.
You got it. They wasted that money, that time. Some of them are already practicing, and they're going to lose their jobs. It's very dramatic what's going on in the world.
Was this out, the newspapers and everything?
Yeah. You can
Google. Use the Google machine.
Yeah, Google the nursing schools that were closed. It's all out there, and the police and all that. Wow. So that's generating a lot of.
Welcome to South Florida.
Very sad.
Yeah. You said you also handle some other areas. I think you had mentioned that you deal with real estate.
I get a couple of cases a year on, from the board, from their licensing side and issues, all kind of issues. Sometimes I've seen issues with prior criminal cases, that may disqualify people. That's the most common thing I see. And there are licenses you cannot hold because of the specific type of crime. So there's always some sprinkle of that out there.
Juan, it's been great hanging out with you, my friend. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, you just send me an email, and do you put the little tag?
Tell us your email.
The email jcarias@jcalawyer.com. That's basically the way to get it. I'm traveling. I'm always in hearings. I'm in the middle of a final hearing now, so I'm not sitting around waiting for calls or for emails. Just email me and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. We'll make sure that's at the bottom of the screen so people can contact you. Appreciate you coming out, my friend. I can tell you all that this man is the guru here in South Florida. I've watched him over the last decade really blossom into this force across the state. So if you need help with any of this license or issues, please contact Juan Carlos.
Thank you so much, bro.